Thanks, you all set? Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Select Board to order on Monday, January 9th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Please join me in saluting the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let the record show all selectmen are present. Letter C, consent agenda, AP warrant number 21, 12/27/2022, number 22, 12/27/2022, payroll register number 51, 12/22/2022, and number 52, 12/29/2022.
Make a motion to accept it.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the warrant and payroll register as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Acceptance of the meeting minutes from December 27th, 2022.
Move to accept.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes of December 27th, 2022. All those in favor? 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Letter E, old business. Mr. Moody?
Yeah, I got one, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I understand that sometime the first of last month, you received a letter of complaint.
I did, yes, yep.
And was you gonna share that with the board?
I can,
Okay?
yep. I don't have it with me right now, but I can get it for you.
No, I already got it.
Yes, yep. Is there a question?
No, you wanna read it?
No. You want me to read it now?
Well, it would be nice, so that everybody's on board with it.
Okay. And it says, December 5th, 2022, Selectmen meeting dated 11/28/22. Dear Albert Renziano, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I just want to put this in writing to you because at the Selectmen's meeting, you felt very strongly that if things were not in writing, there was nothing to discuss or an issue to address. First of all, I feel you disrespected myself and my character in a town that I grew up in and in a public meeting with a room full of people that know me, and that was not called for on your part. All right. Yes, there was an incident where your town manager was very rude to me when I was in the town office on business. I want to make this very clear. My feelings were not hurt. My feelings were not hurt, which you and your town manager seemed to allude to more than once at the meeting. I did feel very disrespected when you spoke to that day by your town manager. I did learn that Mr. Moody went to you and you suggested that Mr. Curtis come apologize to me. My question for you is, why is a public meeting on 11/28/22? You made comments that you did not believe that your town manager would do such a thing when Mr. Curtis himself said he sometimes can come across rude, or come across rude sometimes. You even made a public comment when Mr. Moody stated that you are saying that the Anson administrative assistant filled him full of bull. You then even stated that was probably your perception. Those comments were out of line, and you have no right to slander me in a public meeting when you were never there yourself. Even had a conversation with me, never even had a conversation with me about the incident with Mr. Curtis. I have been asked about your comments in public so many times, including yesterday in the subway. I actually thought Mr. Curtis was being sincere when he apologized. But after seeing the meeting on video, it seems to me that this was all a joke. Because you guys thought it hurt my feelings. Trust me, I am tougher than that. I get that from my dad. But I was disrespected that day, and I certainly do not have to take that kind of attitude. Your statements that you felt that you had to defend a town of employee was not called for because you had another town employee that witnessed to the incident with Mr. Curtis and also felt very uncomfortable by the way Mr. Curtis spoke to me that day. So it was never a he said, she said. She said accusations, but somewhere got lost in your defense of the town manager. I am in no way trying to make a big deal about this incident, but your comments have made in public issue for me because people took it in the same way that I did, pretty much called me a liar. I will defend myself when people ask about it now in public. Just make you aware of that because you have put me in a position now publicly. I want to be very clear. I have no problem working with the town of Madison on any projects or with the town manager on any projects because this is our small communities, should be doing all for the residents. I will say that I will take the high road like I did that day, when I just felt the town office was being disrespected. You don't have to agree with how I perceive Mr. Curtis's comments to me, but as a selectman, you should be very careful in the future how you slam people in public session. Pretty sure most of that meeting should have been an executive session due to all the personnel matters and all the names being discussed in public. You might be surprised by this, but many residents are offended by how you spoke to me in a public session. I grew up in Madison, and have a lot of people know me. Plus, I worked for the town for over 10 years, and I always treated the residents of Madison with respect, and they always treated me well when they see me out in public. I just wanted to let you know I do not agree with how you handle talking about me in public. You have the right to your opinion and stated how you felt in public meetings, so I was just making you aware that I am defending myself when people ask me about your comments. All right. Anything else, Mr.?
No, that's all.
Mr. Manta?
No.
Mr. Gopian?
No.
Mrs. Dwyer?
I'm all set.
All right, thanks. Okay, let's see, items of communication, Mr. Town Manager?
All right. I just want to remind the board that on the 23rd of January, our next meeting, we're going to have a brief assessors meeting ahead of time. So we'll probably be scheduled at a 6 o'clock start for an assessors meeting to catch up on a couple of things. And then we'll have our typical board meeting at 6:30.
And just a note on that, I will not be here. We have a game that night.
Yep. In your packets, I put some information that I found online from the state of Maine. At the last meeting, there was some discussion about roles of the select board and the town manager authority to hire and fire. That's actually in state statute, and so I provided that. Also, MMA has a nice little graph there that kind of talks about the roles of the board and the roles of the manager that I've found helpful in the past. In your packets, I put the timeline for the budget. We should be discussing the budget with department heads later on this month and on into February. I hope to invite some of the advisory board members to come join us on the first meeting in March the 13th, when we go through the budget in more detail for this coming year. And then the actual joint meeting with the Budget Advisory Committee was scheduled for April 5th. That's a Wednesday. That'll be an early start, about 5 or 5:30. I wanted to note that I have a scheduled vacation coming up at near the end of February. I'll actually be out of state from Friday the 24th, and I'll be back to work on Thursday, March 2nd. We were scheduled to have a meeting on the 27th of February, but I will not be available for that meeting. And a couple other things. The posting for the road commissioner job has been out for about 10 days. I have received a couple of phone calls and emails, inquiries, but to date we have not received any resumes or applications for the position to review. On your desks you should have a copy of Donnie's fire department report, and the sheriff's report is also there as well for information. That's all I have.
All right, letter G, new business. Discuss petition for recall for an elected official. Chris, if you could lead us through this.
Okay, so I prepared this sufficiency petition form for you, the board. Basically, I'm just stating that I'm duly sworn clerk for the town of Madison, and I certify 208 valid signatures, which is more than ample to move this forward in the process. So you have the petition forms on your desk, Al. Those are
Anybody
to
like
be able to
go?
be shared, and I will need those back for public record at the end of the meeting.
This one?
And I believe you all have a copy of the proposed timeline.
Okay, so if I read this, it says the clerk's certificate of sufficiency of petition, I, Tris A. Smith, being a duly appointed clerk for the town of Madison, do hereby certify that I have examined the petition instruments filed with me on 2/29/2022 pursuant to 30A MRS 21024, and I have found that it's sufficient in all respects required by law with respect to the following. 208 valid signatures have been submitted for the petition of recall for elected official Selectman Glenn Manter, signed by Tris Smith, and 12/29/2022.
I thought I heard you say that it was given to her on 2/29.
12/29, I'm
Okay.
sorry, 12/29, should have been 12, sorry. All right, you need this back too?
No.
No? Okay, so that
Well,
goes.
you can put it with the petition, so I
Okay.
can file it with the
All
rest
right.
of the stuff.
So if we look at the proposed timeline for recall, it says must be, and it's in our packet, must be 45 to 60 days from the time the town clerk presents verified petition to the board. So she's presenting that tonight on January 9th, 2023. All right, so starting tomorrow morning, January 10th, 2023, to Monday, January 30, 2023, nominations papers will be available for selectmen. On Monday, February 6, 2023, absentee voting will start, and that will go for a month until March 6, 2023.
It will stop on the third day before the election,
Okay, so that will be about the
Friday before.
Friday before, okay? All right, now on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, election day at the polls, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Old Point School. Mr. Mantor.
I will be requesting a recall hearing according to 120-5.
All right, can you help us with that?
That's totally up to the board. The ordinance says he's allowed to have a hearing, and
Before the vote?
yeah, and I think it specifies in there, I mean, you're gonna set up a date to have the hearing. That doesn't involve anybody but the board and the public who wants to attend, because it's open to the public, it's not for, just voters of the town of Madison, it's a public hearing.
So according to the ordinance, it says if the official sought to be recalled so requests, the board shall schedule a public hearing on the matter. Said hearing to take place no less than 7 calendar days prior to the recall election. Does that
Yep.
include absentee?
No, it's just, it's specific to the day of the town meeting for the
For
election.
the election, okay.
So count back 7 days and,
Talking about March 1st,
Well,
whatever, I mean, I'm not
right,
sure.
it has to be no less than 7,
less
so,
than.
so you could do it really any time in February
Okay.
or even late January.
Okay.
do you want to set a date for that, and I can put an,
So
an
you
ad in
want-
the paper or whatever?
Should we do it on the, should we do it on the board meeting on February 9th, I think it is?
The first meeting in February, I think, is the 13th.
13th, should we do it then?
That
Okay, Mr. Manager? Okay. All right, so let's schedule that for February 13th. So it'll be a public hearing.
Are you holding it prior to your meeting? Is that what you're saying?
We could do that, or we could hold it in conjunction with, I mean, we could.
Typically, what we've done with some public hearings is we've just added it as the first item on the agenda.
Yep. All right. First, are we all set? So,
Just it's up to you guys to set this date and we can move forward. I need
all right,
to.
so we're looking for a motion to set the date of Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 as an election day at the polls, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Old Point School. Anybody like to make that a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second? I'll second it for discussion. All right, so we have a motion and a second to set the March 7th, Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 as the recall election day, with the public hearing to be on February 13th, 2023. Any questions? Mr. Go.
I don't have it with me. I thought it said after it's turned in, which would be, in this case, January 9th, you had no less than 45 days, no more than 90 days.
Well, it's in here.
Remember when you gave us that packet, the very first one there?
So it says no less than 45 nor more than 60 calendar days.
60.
The 10th is actually the 60 days, March 10th, but that falls on Friday, so.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Abstentions? Abstaining or?
Yeah, abstain.
Good. One? Abstaining?
Abstain.
All right, so we have 3 in favor, we have two abstentions. Motion carries. All right, anything else we need? Wording's all set?
So the language is dictated by the ordinance, and it simply will read, shall Glenn Manter be recalled from the office of select board member? And it's a yes or no question, and that's the first question on the ballot. According to the ordinance, we are required to put a candidate in there for question 2. So that's what's going on tomorrow to January 30th. Anyone that wants to take out papers to be a candidate on this ballot for selectmen can do that, go out, get the required number of signatures, and turn that back in by January 30th. So I'm assuming that whoever turns back papers that have legitimate signatures by that time would be listed under question 2, where it normally says choose 1, and there will also be a write-in slot. Is that the way you understand? Because it's a typical ballot.
Right.
Okay. So that's the way the ballot will look as question 1, the way the wording is in the ordinance, and then question 2 to choose a candidate. Now, obviously, that's up to the voter once they're in the voting booth. If they select no, not to recall, then they don't have to pick a candidate for number 2.
Right.
And the only way that candidate for number 2 gets elected is if there's enough votes on question 1 to recall.
All right, yes, Mr. Diddy, sorry.
Is this gonna be explained somehow to the people that come in there to go through this procedure? Because it sounds kind of confusing of the steps that they have to go through here.
Right.
How are we gonna get this out so that people understand what they're doing?
Well, I mean, we can do what we've done in the past, is put together small videos that go out on social media and on Channel 11, just trying to explain the ballot. I don't want to step on toes. Kathy slapped my hand enough times in the past. I can't talk about the ballot very much, right?
There will be a sample ballot produced when the absentees are ready to go, so people can view a sample ballot and ask questions.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm just wondering, what if there is nobody to run for the position? What if we don't have anybody? I don't mean to sound stupid, but what if?
So my guess, and Trish and I have talked about this, is you'll have that write-in slot. And sometimes people utilize that. There's been many people elected to positions in Madison that were just written in. And the other thing is, if there's no one elected to that position and there is a recall, then the board would just run with 4 members until June.
Yes, ma'am.
So what if someone's written in and elected? Is there something that makes them qualified or not qualified? I mean, if, as long as they live in the town of Madison, if they are
No,
write-in?
You have to be a registered voter.
You have to be a registered
Registered
voter.
voter,
Live in the town,
Madison, yes.
be a US citizen, be over 18.
18.
And that's it?
That's it.
Those are the qualifications for all elected positions in the town.
All right, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
So something that Mr. Agopian had brought up at a previous meeting is, does the board want to use this ballot to discuss giving the citizens the option of changing the road commissioners elected to appointed status? And this is an opportunity to do that if the board so chooses.
Anybody want to tackle that, or are we good with the way it is?
I'm good with the way it is.
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
All right, that's it. All right, number 2, appointment of voter registrar for 2 years.
So the voter registrar is a 2-year appointment, and it has to be done the first of the year, every odd numbered year. So when Triss was elected as town clerk, she was appointed to fill the rest of Kathy's position as voter registrar, which is up as of December 31st. And so to have a appointed voter registrar, we would need a motion to appoint Triss to that position.
I'll make a motion to appoint Trish as voter registrar for 2 years.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to appoint Trish Smith to be the voter registrar for 2 years for the town of Madison. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
I do have a signature page for you.
All right, number 3, discuss matching grant reimbursement.
Back in August, the board approved several matching grant applications. One of them was for Courtney Cowan and Maine Medicare Solutions. The grant was for new signage and awning work at 57 Main Street. Courtney has provided proof of payment for that. She spent $3,730. Our 50% match entitles her to $1,865 from ARPA funds. And so I need a motion to write that check at the next warrant.
I'll make a motion that we write the check for 1865 to Maine Medicare Solutions.
I'll second it. Any questions? We have a motion and a second to pay $1,865 to Maine Medical Solutions for a grant that they received in the summer, I believe.
Yep.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, number 4, second quarter budget review.
So in your packets, you should have had the one-pager on revenues. And then also in the box, we put out the 10, 12-pager on the expenses. So looking at the revenues first. Yep.
This one here.
Yeah, a while back, you asked us which one we wanted,
Yep.
and I wanted the one come off the computer.
One comes off Trio.
Yeah,
Yep.
and this one here is not like the one I got in December. December was altogether different. The printout I got in December from, I think it was Tammy, I'm not sure.
You wouldn't have got one in December from her.
The end of December I got one, so it was actually November,
Okay.
right? The next one I
Right.
got off in her computer, and then I have this one here, but this one is different than the one I got off in hers. They didn't match up.
So one of the things when you're printing them off of the Trio system, you can expand it so that it shows every line. And so I think the one that you're looking at that you've got in your box this week for December, for the end of December, would have had almost every line expanded. But I think that's only 5 pages long, right?
This one here was, seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yep. So that one's fully expanded with
Right.
every line item.
Right.
Perhaps the one that you got back in October or November,
So this is it.
so that's the one, right? That's fully expanded, right?
Right.
So,
And this is the one I wanted. So I could just compare them. This way here, I only got the top of the lead, like 01, 05, 10, 15. This one here, 01 broken down, 05 broken down, 10 broken down, so on.
right, right. So I can provide that to you.
Okay.
That's not a problem. But for tonight, the one that has everything broken down is this one. See, what happens is I'll take that Trio and I will plug it into this spreadsheet. That's my way of checking to make sure that my budget numbers match with what's in Trio. And if there's a discrepancy, I can go deal with it as soon as I go through my spreadsheet. So all the numbers on this sheet should match the balance numbers on that Trio spreadsheet.
All right, go ahead.
You good?
Yep, revenues.
Yeah, revenues is just that single sheet there. Basically what we've budgeted for our overall revenues, the top yellow line there, that's a culmination of everything. The lion's share of that is excise tax, when people register their vehicles. So out of that $575,000 that we've received so far this year, probably $450 of that is excise tax. I will note that vehicle registrations seem to be tapering off a little bit. They ran pretty hot for the last couple of years, and I think anybody that's tried to buy a new vehicle or a new used vehicle knows that inventory is very slow. And so I think that that's something that we need to keep an eye on as to whether or not we budget as aggressively this coming year. Main revenue sharing continues to be very strong, much stronger than anticipated. And we've received our money from the state for our Betty reimbursement and our homestead exemptions. Tax collections, we've collected about 60% of real estate and personal property taxes, which is about right for this year. And we have about 35 accounts, a couple have paid since I printed this off. We have 35 accounts that have not paid their 2020 taxes. So that means they're going to receive a foreclosure notice this week. And the foreclosure date for unpaid 2020 taxes is February the 24th. So
Snooty.
Those are more than they have been, aren't they, Tim?
Yeah, I
In
mean,
the
I
past.
remember times where we mail out 50
Right.
plus.
Okay.
So 35 is pretty good. And I don't see anybody on the radar right yet that I would propose to be a problem. So I would assume all those will be paid up in February, so, which is good. So any questions about revenues?
Mr. Gopi.
Are they repeat from last year?
Every year you have the same folks that, for whatever reason, will wait until the last possible day to pay their taxes. Everybody pays their taxes. Some just pay on time and some pay not on time.
Some play late.
Right, and those that pay late pay, you know, a couple $100 more than they need to because there's fees and interest. So I can probably guess that of those 35, probably 25 of them were on the list last year. Same folks.
I still have a problem. You mentioned it last year as well.
Yep.
That the taxes should be paid when they come into delinquent. They should be paying the whole thing to get out. All 3 years.
Right, so the only way the select board can enforce that is once it goes past the 24th of February. You can't enforce that ahead of time.
Right, I understand.
You can only require them to pay what's due on the 2020s. But if somebody lapses and they go past the 24th, we've done it the last couple of years at the board's request. Someone that's in that situation, if they want that property back, they have to pay all the back taxes. We've even gone so far as to require them to pay anything outstanding to the sanitary and to MEW if they live in town.
Right.
So that's the only time you can do that is after foreclosure
All right, and that's after the 24th
of
of.
February.
Right.
Right, and I'm hoping that nobody will be in that situation. But I can't
But
make
they're
them pay
always
more.
there.
I know, but I can't make them pay more ahead of time.
No,
True.
I'll remind you the 24th.
Oh, I'm sure you will know.
Are we hearing anything out of Augusta on revenue sharing and that changing at all, or?
No,
nothing?
with
Not
the
really,
status of the legislature and the governor, they're going to continue to be fairly friendly towards state aid education and revenue sharing. So,
All right. Any other questions on the revenue side of this? All right, let's move on to the expenses.
so the expenses, again, you have your sheets there. And I can provide you any breakdown as Mr. Gopian requested earlier. Get those into your boxes. So if you want to sit down and compare these numbers, you can do that. Unless anybody on the board has any specific questions, I would skip ahead to the bottom of page 3. Oh,
You go.
Just on 5, I'm not a big fan of carryover, but, or contingent.
Yep.
5, how come we haven't upgraded the computers? I mean, we've had the money for 6, 7 months.
well, we're going to do that before the end of the fiscal year. And there are 3 PCs that need to be upgraded. And so probably in January, end of January, mid-February, I'm going to schedule that with our IT people so they can buy them, load them up, and get whatever needs to be done. So,
Okay.
yeah, we've identified, Tammy before she left identified the 3 that need to be replaced next. So that'll be done. I have no other questions. On the bottom of page 3, it kind of shows you where we are in the total general government budget, and we're running about 53% of budget so far year to date, which is not too bad. Any questions on general government? The next 2 pages are page 4 and 5, and that's your public safety budget, and most of that language is your fire department budget. Fire department's running about 33%. Animal control, we have spent very little money this year on animal control. We've only spent 7% of our budget on that. We had a few expenses that were passed in today that'll reflect on the next update. But overall, your public safety, fire, ambulance, police and animal control is running about 46% of budget. Any questions on public safety? Page 6 will give you the utilities, storm drains, waste disposal, hydrants, and streetlights. We're running about on track for that. That waste management figure of 119,000, that's based on 5 months. We got the December statement today, so once you put that extra 23,000 in there for December, it'll be just about 50%. If no questions on utilities, page 7,
So the hydrants are paid half and half,
quarterly.
quarterly, okay.
Yep, so they send us a bill for about $56,000 or so every quarter, 58,000. Page 7, and page 8 contain your public works highway budget. There's some carry forward in that that's already been spent. The 10,000 on special projects has already been spent. What you don't see reflected in here is our salt and calcium budget for the wintertime, because that's paid for out of TIF. I ordered salt 2 weeks ago, and I ordered another 100 tons today. And based on that pricing, we will be about halfway through our salt budget by February. So, any questions on public works? You look at page 9, you see recreation and cemeteries. Very little spending this time of year, although we do have some recreation workers that are trying to make some ice. And we have, Mike Ricker has submitted some of his work from this past fall. That's not included in the cemetery budget, but there's probably about $6,000 worth of work that will go into maintenance for Forest Hills. All right, no questions. Page 10 is the library and community programs. Library is running about 48%. Community programs, some of those are paid out in full, so it's a little higher than 50%.
Moody.
Tim, going back to library,
Yep.
there was talk that they were gonna redo the handicap ramp at the library. Where does that stand now?
That's probably still a couple years off.
It is?
Yeah, they, I get confused between the dome windows. I think the dome windows was about a $70,000 job. They got $50,000 from Stephen and Tabitha King Foundation. So I think that's their focus for this when the weather warms up, to get that contracted and scheduled. The ramp, I mean, there's a lot that has to be done there to remove what's there and replace it with the more efficient one, but it's so high, it's going to be so long. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been behind the old Kelmat Cafe in Skowhegan and seen how long their handicap run is. It takes up half the parking lot. So that's a requirement. For every inch you go off the ground, you got to go out a foot. So if it's 60 inches off the ground, you got to go out 60 feet with that. That's why that curved one, that's kind of grandfathered, but it works, but it's not the best. So that's probably after this dome window replacement. That's when you'll see Julie and I probably working on some funding for that.
There must be other types of designs or what have you out there. So, okay, I just wondered where we stood on that one.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see anything on that in this year's budget.
Okay.
Maybe some plans for a few years. All right, page 11 is your town-owned properties, including Old Point. We've spent well over our maintenance and repair budget for Old Point. Two reasons. One, we had a 5-year fire inspection, which is required by State Fire Marshal's office, and it cost about $1,200. Then we had to have a furnace repair because our furnace went out here on a Saturday. And the folks from the Historical Society were having a big meeting, and it was 46 degrees in here. And so we did get that fixed. So not only did we have to pay for the weekend call out, it was about a $900 piece that needed to be replaced on one of the blowers. And so that, even with all that, we're about 42% spent on town-owned property. So the bottom of page 11, that little box shows you all the non-capital spending. We're sitting year-to-date at about 44% of money spent. And then on the final back page, you have the capital spending. So included in there, year-to-date, is the money we spent for 2 trucks. One was the highway truck and the other was the fire truck. And we did about $163,000. I'm sorry. Yeah, we did about $112,000 worth of road paving projects. That leaves us about $50,000 that we could probably earmark to try to use this spring for some projects before the end of the fiscal year. So we have sidewalk capital and cemetery capital that we haven't spent anything on yet. I'm working on a sidewalk plan, and I'm working with Mike Ricker on a cemetery plan. So any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much. All right, moving forward. Number 5, continue review of personnel policy.
Okay, so if you've got your personnel policy with you, I did bring some extra copies, but if you've got yours as a board, we're on page 12. And what I'd hope to do tonight is to be able to finish up section 6, which is employee benefits. And we can kind of pick up on a discussion we left off on last time in regards to overtime. So right now on page 12, section 6A1, the language in the policy says overtime, time and a half, is only for those hours worked in excess of 40 hours a pay period. And there was discussion about whether or not it should be over 40 or over 8 in a day. And I'll just draw your attention, if you flip the page to page 13, item number 5 in that same category. In the highway department, time and a half, base hourly rate shall be paid for hours worked over 10 hours in a day during snow removal season. And the reason that's in there is because seasonal employees are not in the union contract. So if you have a seasonal employee, they abide by this. But by having that in there during snow removal season, they get the same benefit as the union employees for overtime earned after 10 hours in one day. So I raised the question, is that something that the board would want to consider to translate over into number 1, where you could change time and a half to be paid for more than 8 hours in one day, or do you want to keep it at 40 hours in 1 week?
Mr. Massey.
I think the unwritten rule in highway is if you end up in the summertime working an extra half hour a day, you don't get overtime. You take off early at the end of the week to offset that. So I think that's kind of the way it is, but during the winter, it is over 10 hours. Right. In the summer, we have never paid any overtime, right, unless it was a big washout.
Right. And that's consistent with what you see in the budget. Rarely do you see any overtime in highway until after November.
Can you require that of somebody that was out legal?
It does address this in here, that an employee who has accumulated 40 hours, number 3, in the work week may be required to take time off during his regular scheduled work week for the purpose of reducing the amount of overtime. So that is authorized in this policy.
that must be illegal.
That's what the lawyer did when he looked over this policy. Okay, so if there's no appetite to change that,
Stir guilty.
Yes, seasonal worker, that's just for highway in the wintertime. You guys, you don't, I guess you're the road commissioner. So do you hire people in the summertime?
no.
All right, so the only time you have the seasonal workers are in the winter months, right?
Typically, yes.
So why don't you put them in that, the other one, just take them out of here altogether? Nobody hires seasonal workers except for the road. And if these people are gonna be there just for winter months, well, they're working 10 hours a week anyway, makes for 40, and anything above that, then they can get
They'd
the,
have to go into the contract.
you're gonna go into it, we're gonna open up in another month or
I'm
so.
saying, no,
So-
those employees have to be covered by the contract, and they are not.
So right now, only full-time employees year-round are covered in the highway collective bargaining agreement contract.
So these, what I'm saying, these seasonal people, you can put them wherever you want to.
Well, you can't put them in the contract.
You can't put them in the union.
You can't put them in the union contract.
Are they gonna be seasonal? Do they get paid just like everybody else?
They get paid the hourly rate they agree to, right?
Everybody else that works on the road with them, do they get the same amount of hours and everything else?
It depends. Right now, we have 3 seasonal workers,
Okay,
and they're only working on call because they don't want to work 40 hours a week. They have other things that they want to do in the wintertime.
okay.
So they're only working on call. So if it doesn't snow or rain, they don't work at all.
Then
And
there's no problem.
that's a good situation for us budget-wise. But if they do come in and they work 12 hours straight, they get
2 hours
overtime for that, right, for those 2 hours.
Right.
So that's the way it's written right now.
And how about if they come in, seasonal worker and I'm not, and we both work 12 hours, we get the
Both
same
get the
pay?
same, yeah.
Right.
Yep,
So
that
why
way.
can't you just put on for winter months in the contract?
Because the contract's not written that way.
Well, we'll change it.
If you want to change it, then
We can,
you certainly can, if all parties agree to it, yes.
right, that's fine.
But that's not a question for this policy.
Well, it
That's
is,
a question.
because you could take them out.
If you had another place to put them, right? If you put them in that highway
Right,
contract,
the
you
highway
could.
contract, it's doing the same job,
Yeah.
But
so it'll make it difficult.
those people, if that's the case, then those people would have to join the union, correct? That, would you say that?
I don't know why you would want to do that.
Right.
No, they wouldn't need to join the union.
Yes, because if they abide by the contract, they have to be in the union. The contract only applies to the, right now, 3 union members we have.
All right, so this one here says, still has that 10 hours in it,
Right.
so anything over 10 hours, they get 12?
They get, right. Anything over,
Right.
they get time and a half, or anything over 10 hours.
Right. All right, I don't have, just put them in one place or the other, you don't need them in 2 different,
They're not. A seasonal employee is only in this personnel policy.
okay.
It's not in the contract at all.
Full-time people are in the contract, in the union contract.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
What, how come it's in red here? That we're saying it's half, this 8-hour day,
Is that the change that
That's
he was thinking
13.
about?
So we're on page 13 up there on number 5.
yeah.
Yeah, anything I put in red were just my notes. So I'm saying, would you consider applying this same concept to a non-highway worker that works more than 8 hours in a day? So I just put that in there as my note. That's not going to be in the final.
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with number 5.
Nope.
No.
All right. So seasonal worker is under this one?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, let's move on.
So on page 13, I had a question about holidays. It seems the federal government and the state have accepted the observation of Juneteenth as a federal and state holiday. I believe I had a conversation with the board sometime last year, and the board seemed to be of the thinking that if the state has it and the federal government has it, then it should be in the town's policy. So I would recommend adding Juneteenth as a as one of the total 14 days of holiday pay that the town gets. Item number 2 is the long-standing tradition of closing the town office at noon on Good Friday, the Friday before Easter. I would recommend taking that out. That's probably not a tradition consistent with our community anymore. And so if you're adding Juneteenth and you're taking away the half day, then the employees are actually gaining a half day of time off. Any questions on that? All right, the other items on page 13 have to do with callback pay, which I don't have any questions on that. And then you get into the bottom of 13 and into page 14 on sick time. And I think everybody's pretty familiar with our policy on sick time. The only thing I recommend looking at is item number 9 at the bottom of page 14. There's always been some confusion over who gets paid out sick time at the end of their time with the town. According to this, if you are a person who resigns in good standing, you give proper notice, you get 25% of your accumulated sick time. You got 100 sick time hours left when you resign, you get 25 of those paid out when you're done. However, as an incentive for longevity, if you've worked for the town for 20 years, you get all of your sick time paid out. And so if you got 100 hours on the books, you get paid out 100 hours at whatever your rate is at that time. Now, I underlined something in there that was put into this policy, I think back in 2012, maybe even 2015. It says employees hired after approval of this personnel policy will not receive any compensation for sick time accrual at the time of resignation. So according to this policy, we've got 3 classes of employees. You have employees that were hired before 2015, and they're going to get 25%, unless they work 20 years, then they're going to get 100%. And then you have employees that have been hired after 2015. Doesn't matter how much sick time they have on the books, they're not going to get any of it. That's the way it reads right now. Is that the way you want it to read?
Well,
I'm sorry.
how did that get in there?
I wasn't here when that was first put together, so I don't know. We can always blame it on the past board and the past town manager.
Who put in this CBA?
Oh, the last line there?
Yeah.
I wrote that, that's my note. This language was included in the revision in 2015. This means an employee hired from 215, this is what I just said, from 215 onwards should not have received any payment for outstanding sick time. There's no such language in the CBA, which is the collective bargaining agreement. So there's nothing in the union contract that says people hired after 2015 don't get any sick time.
This is what?
I was kind of wondering if that was had been put in. I wasn't obviously here at that time, but a lot of places do not do sick time. If you have accrued sick time and you leave,
You don't get paid.
you don't get anything.
And it sounds like that was part of the
If
discussion
that's
back
what
then,
their intention was.
but both
It's very confusing.
both issues ended up in the language.
Yeah.
So what this does in practice, go ahead.
I just have one more. There is state law that says you have to pay.
Vacation.
It's just vacation
Just
time.
accrued vacation time. We looked into this between the last couple of meetings. So there is a state law that any accrued vacation time you have on the books, the employer, if you have more than 11 employees, has to pay that.
Okay,
There's no such rule on sick time.
it doesn't. All right, that's my question.
So basically what this does is we have some employees who are gonna get something and some who are not gonna get anything.
Right, and what this also does, the whole 25% or no sick time payout, it leads to a situation where when a person knows that they plan on getting done in 6 months, they start using up their sick time. So if I've got 200 hours of sick time and 100 hours of vacation, and I know I'm going to resign in 6 months, guess what? I'm sick. 2 days a week for the next 6 months. So I'm using down that, because that vacation time, you're gonna pay me. But sick time, you're not, so I'm gonna use it now so I don't lose the value of it. So that does put a strain on office work and highway work and how we get things done. If you've got a person that's looking forward to leave, but they know they're gonna be penalized on their sick time, or the town could just opt to have no payout for sick time and just say deal with it. If people wanna use their sick time as they're going out the door, that's something that department heads will have to deal with.
Commander.
I've always had an issue with this, is if you're sick, you get 8 hours sick pay. If you're not sick, you get 4 hours sick pay, so. And then the other thing is when they do get done or move on or retire, you're forcing them to take time off when it might be a benefit to the town to try and keep them on the hours you could to make that transition to someone else.
Right.
I want to say I believe that they earn it, they should get it, but I don't know how everybody else feels.
I would agree with you. Yeah, I think we just have to take that line out, right? There's nothing, yeah, I would go along with that. Do you go to that, Mr. Goldman?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm gonna go with that.
So I'll make a note of that. We'll circle back around to it at an upcoming meeting. So on page 15, if you look at section E, this was a new state law that had to do with earned benefit time or earned time off. So if you're a full-time or a part-time employee with the town, you're already getting sick time. This new state law only applies to a small amount of people who may do work for the town over the course of a year. And they will accrue some time off. But in this section, verse 5, section 5, number 5, says leave upon accrual separation. This state law says this accrued leave has no cash value. So there's nothing to pay out for like our animal control officer who may earn 0.2 of an hour for the time that he's put in. That's got to be carried on the book, so the bookkeeper that does payroll has to carry that. But at the time that that person leaves the town, we don't have to pay out that. If you're a part-time or full-time employee, then according to this policy, you would get paid out your sick time. All right, next, bottom of page 15 is compensation, claims, workers' comp. Many of these next sections are pretty much boilerplate. Page 16 is military leave, jury duty, victims of violence leave. Page 17 is bereavement leave, and then a clothing allowance. Unless you have specific questions about that, I don't recommend any changes in those items. And then midway through page 17, you start talking about vacations. And so this section here talks about how vacation days are earned, and there's more vacation time earned the longer your tenure is as an employee. But we brought this up about the probationary period when we were hiring people this past summer. So right now, the policy says no vacation days shall be earned during the probationary period. So that means for the first 6 months of a person working, they're not earning any vacation time. They are earning sick time, but they're not earning any vacation time. I put my notes in this. This policy places us at a competitive disadvantage when hiring, because many people are offering vacation as soon as you start. Perhaps we should consider changing it to vacation days can be earned but not used during the 6-month probationary period. So that when they're here 6 months of the day, they've got 6 vacation days, but they can't use them until they're here after those 6 days. Right now, the way the policy reads is you don't have any vacation for 6 months. And when you're here after 6 months, then you start earning. So your 7th month, you have 1 day of vacation. So I would recommend changing that so that you earn it, but don't use it until your probationary period is done.
Woody, you good with that?
Yes, very much.
You good with that?
I have,
Go ahead.
I guess so, it's a little confusing, but yeah, I guess so.
There you go.
okay, they get paid for vacation day, right?
Once they've earned a vacation day and they take a day
No,
off.
I mean, if you have a day off, like 4th of July, something like this. you get- they
Right, that's a
get paid.
holiday, yeah.
They get paid, that's holiday
Right.
pay.
Right.
Okay, so vacation pay, by the way, what is vacation pay?
Vacation pay is just what it's defined here as. You earn, letter B, you earn one vacation day for
For
each
1 month.
completed full month.
Right.
Yeah,
And you get 8 hours for sick.
sick, right.
Okay, so this contract pays everything on months, right?
Right.
Okay.
All right. Sound good?
Right. If you've got questions, now's the time to ask them. Page 19, I'm sorry, page 18, we talked about this at the end of the last meeting. Page 18 is something that was added by this board in 21, that a full-time employee who has the ability to have medical and hospital insurance elsewhere can get a payment in lieu towards their retirement of a flat fee of $7,000 if they don't take the town's insurance. What I brought up at the last meeting, it doesn't say in here that this is a probationary benefit. But I believe it should be, and I believe many members of the board thought it should be a probationary benefit. Anybody recall differently?
I don't understand what you're saying, probationary.
I'm not sure I get it.
So, right now, if an employee starts and they're full-time and they don't take our insurance,
Yes,
right now the way it reads is we would automatically be paying that $7,000.
right.
Should we, moving forward, make that contingent on them being here 6 months? In other words, it's a benefit that you're going to pay. Should you wait until they're here 6 months before you pay it? Or should you wait, kind of like vacation days, should you wait until they're here 6 months and then pay it all retroactively back?
But what you're doing is, other places are starting out and not have that after a probationary period. So it's something that's less attractive to hire.
Right.
You follow me?
Right.
Yeah. But if you start it after the 6 months, and another place starts it the day you're hired,
Right.
that's quite an incentive right there.
Okay.
And I know a lot of places are doing that.
Yeah. So are you in favor of just leaving it the way it is? So that a full-time employee could get this benefit as they start? Not waiting till their probationary period?
That's the way I look at it. That's just me.
Yeah. We just changed one thing to make it so they start earning vacation days
Right.
Right.
when they start. I mean, there's no sense changing that, I don't think.
So it's more consistent.
Right.
Yeah, it's a stronger incentive.
Okay, I'm still against it.
You're on the record as being against it. All right, the remaining items,
And one other thing, vacation pay, they can get up to 2 days for like 1 month, right? After being here 20 years.
that's correct.
So they get 24 more days, and we pay them back at regular pay, right?
That's correct.
And it's either 10-hour day or 8-hour day.
Right, the highway would take a vacation day as a 10-hour day. So everything else on page 18 and 19, 20, 21, I didn't have any recommendations to change, and I don't know if the board has any recommendations on that or not. So if not, on your desks should be updated appendices. Appendix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You should have a copy of that. I don't think we need to go over it tonight. These are pretty much standard HR forms. I did get the updated ones, so you're welcome to look over and make sure there's no typos or anything in there, but that is what I would recommend putting in the back of the personnel policy and the highway contract, because they both kind of mirror each other. There's standard things like sexual harassment and family medical leave, and drug use, that sort of thing. They're all pretty standard things. So what I would recommend is that at a future meeting, I can give you a summary sheet of all the changes that you've discussed that need board approval. And I can get you a clean copy of the personnel policy, and we can review that and continue to move forward. I appreciate the time that you've given to this. It certainly was needed.
Thank you.
That'll come up at a future meeting.
All right, select board's concern, Mr. Moody,
None, sir.
Mr. Mentor, Mr. Gopi.
I have a couple. One is, somebody asked me, the CMP, do they pay taxes?
Yes. Yeah, their valuation in Madison is $21 million.
21 million?
Yeah, so they pay, what's 21 million times 2? They pay about $400,000 in taxes.
400,000?
Yeah.
What happened, now my next question is, on the paper they said that they're going to try to get somebody else to take a committee to take over the CMP. How would this affect us?
So I think you're referring to the citizens initiative that they're trying to put in the November election.
Right.
There's been some folks in the state legislature who have tried to propose the idea that the state take over CMP and Verso and all the others. That wouldn't affect Madison Electric. Madison Electric would stay like it is. Take this for what it's worth. In this proposal, the state promises to pay you, the town of Madison, the same as CMP would have paid.
So they would pay the 400,000.
That's what they promised.
And they're lowering my taxes, keeping my taxes low.
Well,
The state's going to do that too.
the state's promised people of a certain age
Yeah.
that their taxes wouldn't go up.
This is what?
I guess I'm all set.
Oh, wait, I got.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gopi.
I got.
Sorry to go over you.
This letter I got here from
Letter read?
you and Mike, no. You and Mike Nelson
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I just have one thing I just want to ask you on it. When you got to talking about everything, and you got the court enforcement, and you went up and checked on the trailer and make sure it was too big and
Yeah.
everything else,
Yeah.
and Jay was with you, you guys talked about, and he got him the conveyance and all this other stuff. My concern was after that, was then you went and saw Dave Savage, talked to him about it. You made a decision to allow the mobile home to stay. Then I thought I would run for an undue hardship for the contractor. I decided to go to the administrative consultant agreement with Dave Savage. Then I would be glad to address this at the future. How come you didn't let Jay handle all this?
Jay and I talked about this. So Jay issued the permit for a mobile home.
Mm-hmm.
When the contractor got there with the mobile home to put on the pad, it was 6 feet longer than he thought it was. And so it was making a non-conforming lot even more non-conforming. So immediately, Jay and I were over our head with this.
Okay.
I'd never dealt with anything like this before, neither had he.
Mhm.
So fortunately, Dave Savage is appointed to serve Madison as well. So I called him and I said, what do you do with a situation like this?
The thing I'm getting at is, why didn't you let Jay, he's capable, why didn't you let him handle this?
Why did I let him call Dave Savage?
Yeah, and do all the other things and make these decisions that you make.
I was in the office and he wasn't.
Well, he's only part-time now, aren't you gonna call him in?
I could have, but I chose to go to the other code officer that we have. I follow his.
Okay, but,
Guidance.
I mean, if he's.
Right,
if he's
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
That in hindsight, maybe I should have had Jay call Dave Savage, and then Dave could have sent all the paperwork to Jay, And Jay would have
And you
filled
could have
it.
been working in the office doing something else.
I could have, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I was gonna bring up 81 Western Avenue myself. I just felt it was too big of a trailer for that. I mean, it appears that it's on, and there's nothing we can do about it now, but it appears that it's so far back that it's in the trees of the, I'm assuming those are the neighbors' trees.
That tree's right on the property.
Probably.
They share.
I just thought it was, I didn't think it was a trailer that could fit in that small of an area. And it wasn't on the pad. It was bigger than the pad, so I felt that it had to fit the pad. But
No, I mean-
I'm fine with it, the way it is, and we'll roll with it. But-
The only comment I had about that situation is that we have codes. If we're not gonna follow the codes, what good are they?
Well, I think the answer to that is.
I know there's exceptions.
That's right, and you have discretion, and this is where Dave Savage said, you gotta use your discretion.
But sometimes it opens a can of worms, because if you let him do it, how come you ain't gonna let him do it?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Right.
That's what I'm,
But I mean, in my mind, if that trailer fit on that pad, we wouldn't be talking about this.
Right,
But
right.
it didn't, so, but
And-
we accepted it, so we'll move forward.
Do we have a setback code,
yes.
We do, 15 feet.
15 feet?
15
Yeah,
feet
used to be
is the setback.
5.
Well, I was looking at that picture and it's like,
Yep, it's
3
about 5.
feet.
It's 5.
it's 5
It's
feet.
5 feet from the property line, which was the setback
Right.
back in 2012 or earlier. So when the town changed the setback rule in 2012, we knew full well that this was going to affect just about every in-town lot. Because every in-town lot, the buildings are closer than 15 feet to the property line. So you have to use your discretion and figure out, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to do this process? What if somebody wants to expand? And I talked to Mike Nelson, because he had mentioned he wanted to expand his garage. And I said, there's a way to do it through the appeals board and a variance, and we've done it with others. So there is a process to try to take everything on a case-by-case basis and see if it makes sense to grant a variance for this 15-foot setback. What the 15-foot setback really benefits is that your larger properties, where you're not right on top of your neighbor if you're building a new structure.
So, what are you gonna do anything about the trailer, or just that?
We've done all we're gonna do about it. We're
You're
not
not gonna
do-
make him drag it back out and put a cement slab or?
No, because the pad is adequate for it. It doesn't, the whole thing doesn't have to sit on the pad.
Okay. Well, the thing is, it's like they were saying, you have one exception, you're gonna have 15 more behind them.
And we'll deal with those on a case-by-case basis. If you look at the paperwork that Dave had me draw up, this paperwork actually was signed by the property owner, it's signed by the town, and it goes to the registry of deeds to be recorded on that property. So that anyone in the future that wants to buy or sell that property, they know that there was a violation there, and the town issued a fine, and then the town agreed to leave it there.
And I kinda agree with Mike, the fine was kinda cheap. I mean, $100,
Yeah.
and it's all done forever.
Just so, we've been to town meeting many times with increasing the fines.
I know.
We've always got shot down, always. I mean, in flaming colors. It has not been pretty.
Anybody wants to break the rules, that's why.
Well, okay. Well, I'm not gonna say that. all right?
That's why you have a job.
The other thing I had was, the board, at a future meeting, if we should consider compensation for the town manager acting as road commissioner. I think there's extra time put in here, maybe at the February 9th meeting, we could, I won't be here on the 23rd, but on February 9th, or if you want to talk about it on the 23rd, you can. We can put it on the agenda, and we can talk about that. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what compensation, he can look around at certain places, but if that's something we want to talk about, I think it would be, Mr. Manton.
Just like I did, I was on salary, that was it. He's on salary.
I would have somebody take a different job, though. And we should have probably talked about it when we appointed it, but we were so happy that we were appointing him that we didn't, but we can bring it up. Are we okay with bringing it up on our agenda?
I'm okay.
bring it, but the only thing is, some of this, sometimes Tim just goes beyond. I mean, Jay could have done this.
Okay, well, I'm moving on to the next thing. You know, I just, I mean, at midnight, somebody getting up at midnight and going out, I mean, I think we should compensate them a little bit for that. But that's,
Who knows, maybe we'll get somebody by that time.
all right, so it's on the agenda for the 23rd. You guys can talk about it and decide what you're gonna do.
Oh, that's right, you won't be.
I won't be here. All right, so, looking for a motion to, I'm sorry, citizens' concerns. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Angela Bucher, East Madison. I have two things. First of all, I have a question about the recall meeting, and I'm not saying that I have an opinion on it either way, and obviously Mr. Manter has read the rules and he has the right to have the recall meeting. But if the recall meeting is 7 days before the election, is that correct? 7 days before?
So what the board agreed is to hold the recall public hearing on February 13th, which would be about 3 weeks before the election, not 7 days, about 20, 21 days.
But is that the same meeting that Mr. Manter asked for?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my concern was that people weren't going to step up and run for it if it's something that we were going to have this meeting that Mr. Manter had just asked for, and the board could somehow change that.
Right, so the public hearing is simply just a public hearing for people to voice questions and concerns. It doesn't have any bearing on the election. The selectmen, they don't have the power in the ordinance to change the recall election.
Okay.
They have to have one.
So the meeting that Mr. Manter is asking for, and I don't mean to talk about you in that way, if you'd like to respond, that's fine too, but the meeting is so that the public can come in and everyone can discuss it.
Well, it's gonna be, what the public hearing will be is people are going to make comment.
Okay.
I mean, and there's not, I don't believe there'll be in a public hearing, we usually don't have discussion.
Okay.
We're usually just people are say what they want to say.
Okay. So.
And Mr. Manter certainly can say what he wants to say.
Okay, okay. And then my only other point is, again, I said this last week or the last time that you met, I truly don't think that the overtime over 8 hours is truly being understood. I'm an employer, and if I ask somebody to work an election and they're there for a 14-hour day, I think they should be getting paid, and this is just my opinion, but I think they should be getting paid whether they've worked 40 hours or not that week. I think they should be getting overtime if you are asking them to stay for an extended period of time, which is not their normal shift. My opinion.
We certainly bring that up when we talk about the whole package. Yeah. All right. Any other community? Yes.
I'm just gonna agree with her on that whole subject. It's a 16-hour day on that day, plus there's extra overtime the day before, getting prepped for it normally. And there was a holiday in the week that we just had our election. So that holiday for that 8 hours does not get put towards your worked 40 hours for that week. So it was much clearer when anything over 8 hours was in the administrative side of this policy. And it was there before, and it got taken out.
You go.
I'm gonna have to.
Okay. Well, you're gonna get your chance. All right. Anybody else? Anything else? Any other citizens' concerns? All right. Seeing one more.
Mr. Moody was able to ask you to read a concern that you were sent. Does that go for the citizens as well? Are you able to read a complaint I sent you?
I don't have it with me.
If I gave it to you,
Right
would you
now?
read it?
I can, I guess.
I didn't know that was a thing that was allowed.
Well, I think that was written to the select board. I probably should have brought it to the select board. I'm not dealing with that.
You're not allowed
No,
to do that?
I'm not doing that.
Really?
No. You
You're
can,
not
you can read it if you want to, but I'm not.
Okay. I didn't
Alright.
know if I was allowed to
Yep.
read
you
it.
can-
If I had to give it to you.
I'm not
Okay.
reading that.
That's fine.
And
I
I
can
just
read
as
it.
soon leave that subject alone. if we could.
If you're not gonna read it, I'll hold it for a different time.
All right, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? All in favor, motion carries.